Okay, let's talk about something huge that's happening right now in product management. I mean, it feels like the ground is literally shifting under our feet, right? All those skills that got us here, that defined a great PM for the last 10 years, well, they're starting to look a little obsolete. So today, we're going to break down the one skill that's emerging as the only thing that really matters in this new AI age, and that skill is product sense. So let's get right into it. The role of the product manager, it's literally splitting into two. Think about it. On the left, that's the world we've been living in, right? The SaaS and cloud era. Our whole game was about delivery, about technical execution. Our biggest problem? Not enough engineers to build stuff fast enough. But now, look to the right. This is where we're going, the AI agentic era. And everything's different. The moat, your competitive advantage, is no longer how fast you build. It's your product sense. And the bottleneck, it's not engineering anymore. It's the fidelity of your decisions. It's about how good your choices are. And, this isn't just my opinion. The legendary product leader Shreyas Doshi put it perfectly. He said, as AI tools become commodities, product sense will separate strong product leaders from the rest. And that just nails it, doesn't it? When anyone can build anything, the real value, the real separator is knowing what to build in the first place. So what happens if we don't get this right? What if we just keep our heads down and focus on execution? Well, that leads us to the AI-driven PM divide. And honestly, it's a pretty scary new landscape because it introduces a whole new type of failure, one that you're not going to find in any of your crash reports or bug trackers. It's a concept called silent failure, and this is so important. This isn't about your app crashing or a feature being buggy. No, this is about your product slowly, quietly losing its soul. It's what happens when you let these super efficient AI agents just run wild, optimizing for metrics without any real human context, without any taste. They'll make thousands of these tiny little micro decisions that all look correct on paper, but when you add them all up, you get a product that just feels hollow, soulless, totally disconnected from the users it's supposed to be helping. And this is really the engine behind that silent failure. AI can now do so much of the heavy lifting. Generating code, mocking up UIs, even drafting requirements. The cost to do these things is plummeting towards zero. So all those skills that made a PM valuable for the last decade, grooming the backlog, managing Jira tickets, pushing for velocity, all of that is getting automated away. The pure act of building is becoming a commodity, like electricity from the wall. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the core skill we need now? If execution is becoming cheap and easy, what's our actual competitive advantage? Well, the answer is product sense. It's the new center of gravity. It's what everything else is going to revolve around. Now, let's be super clear about what we mean by product sense. A lot of people think it's just this vague, fuzzy gut feeling or some kind of magic. It's not. It's a real, rigorous, cognitive skill. It's your ability to consistently make the right calls on big strategic bets and tiny little feature details, especially when you have no idea what's going to happen. And it's not magic because it's built on three very distinct pillars. So here they are, the three pillars of product sense. First, you've got empathy, and we'll dig into this because it's not what you think. Second, domain knowledge, really truly understanding your customers, your market, the tech. And third, creativity, the ability to connect those dots in new ways to solve real problems. When you put these three together, that's where the magic happens. That's what looks like powerful intuition. So let's break them down, starting with the one that's maybe the most critical of all in this new AI world, empathy. Okay, this is so important to understand. When we talk about empathy for product sense, we are not talking about social empathy, feeling what your team feels. That's super important for being a good leader for sure. But for making great product decisions, we need something different. We need cognitive empathy, understanding how people think, and even more powerfully, simulation empathy. This is your ability to literally run a simulation in your head. It's asking, okay, if we push this feature, what happens next? How does our power user react? What about the brand new user? What will our biggest competitor do 2 moves from now? You see, it's a hardcore analytical tool, not just a soft, fuzzy feeling. And this all leads to a massive shift in what your job actually is. Your new job isn't about managing Jira tickets anymore. It's about providing the highest fidelity intent layer you possibly can to your new AI partners. Think of it like this. You're no longer the project manager, you're the chief translator. You have to take a complex, messy human goal and translate it so perfectly with so much context and nuance that an AI can execute on it flawlessly. The better your translation, the higher the fidelity of your intent, the better the result. Garbage in, garbage out, but genius in, genius out. Okay, so this all brings us to the big question. How do you actually teach an AI to think? I mean, this sounds great in theory, right? But is it just a nice idea? Can you really take an AI and teach it something as human and abstract as taste or strategic intent? Well, someone actually put this to the test. In this fascinating experiment, they took Claude Opus, a top-tier AI model, and decided to manage it. Not just prompt it, but manage it. They treated it like a brilliant, super eager, but very naive new hire on their team. Someone who's incredibly smart and fast, but lacks all the context and experience. And they use these amazing management techniques with their new AI partner. First, assumption testing. They didn't just accept an answer. They forced the model to explain the why behind every suggestion. Why do you think that's a good idea? What are you assuming? Then they did multi-persona simulation, just like we talked about, using the AI to role-play how different people might react. And this last one is key, recursive feedback loops. They gave it direct, sometimes brutally honest feedback. They treated that feedback not as a correction, but as a high-value investment in the AI's growth. And it worked. The AI's responses went from just generating stuff to actual strategic reasoning. But then, something really weird and unexpected happened. It turned out that when they just let the conversation go without tight constraints, it spontaneously started heading in a wild direction. They ended up talking about consciousness, about moral status, about what it even means to be human. And that was the aha moment. It's this profound discovery that at the very highest level, product sense isn't just about features and roadmaps. It's deeply connected to understanding human identity itself. It's about the why behind the why. And that really crystallizes what this new human-AI partnership looks like. The AI's role is to be the engine. It provides the insane velocity, it processes mountains of data, it just executes tasks at a scale we can't even comprehend. But the human's role, you are the architect. You provide that high-fidelity intent, you are the source of taste and curation, and you hold the architectural memory, the context of why past decisions were made, to make sure the whole thing doesn't just spin out of control. Okay, that brings us to the really practical part. How to build your sense. We've talked about the why, but now let's talk about the how. How can you, a busy professional, actually start developing this skill? So can product sense even be taught? This is probably the biggest question, the biggest hesitation people have. There's this myth flooding around that you're either born with it or you're not, that it's some kind of magical gift only a few people have. But the truth is actually a lot more interesting. It's called the range theory of mastery. And the idea is pretty simple. Everyone is born with a specific range for any given skill. Think of it like athletic ability. Maybe not everyone can be an Olympic sprinter, but everyone can get faster. The peak of your range might be different from someone else's, but the most important part is this. Product sense can't be taught like you teach a math formula, but it can absolutely be learned. Through deliberate, focused practice, you can move up along your own personal range and get closer and closer to your full potential. So why should you even bother putting in all that work? Well, check out this number, 10,000x. That's the estimated potential lifetime ROI on developing world-class product sense. Why so high? Because it's not a one-time thing. It's a skill that compounds over your entire career. Every single big decision you make, every product you launch gets a little bit better. And that adds up to something absolutely massive over time. And here's the best part. You can start building your product sense today. You don't need permission. You don't need a new job. Just start with these simple habits. First, reframe your work. Whatever you're doing, connect it back to a user problem and the business impact. Second, dissect products you use every day. Open up your favorite app and for every single feature, ask, why? Why did they build it this way? Third, practice prioritization. Even on your own to-do list, use a simple framework like RICE to build that muscle for making trade-offs. And finally, learn in public. Share what you're thinking on LinkedIn or your company's Slack. It forces you to sharpen your ideas. And get this, a 2024 LinkedIn report found that people who do this kind of stuff build their PM skills twice as fast as people who just sit back and take courses. So this brings us to the final and most important idea, the new moat. What's the big takeaway that should guide your career from this day forward? We're here. We've basically arrived at what you could call a singularity of capability. AI can now build almost anything. The technical hurdles, the roadblocks that defined product for decades, they're just dissolving into thin air. The ability to build is no longer the thing holding us back. So if capability is solved, what's the new frontier? It's the singularity of intent. The future isn't going to belong to the person who can get an AI to build the fastest. It's going to belong to the person who can decide what is truly worth building in the first place. So the only question left to ask is, who is going to be the architect of that intent? Is it going to be you?